Hello, everybody. Happy spooky season. This is Samhain weekend, so I thought that it might be really fun to get together with some of my favorite people and tell some spooky stories to scare the poop out of us on this weekend or to make us think about things. So I hope you all are well. Haven't seen you in a while. I'm going to be scheduling another one of these because I've had some really amazing experiences with people who have recently left this plane, and I want to tell about those. But those aren't spooky at all. They're just they're for another time. I'll talk about those another time. But for tonight, I want to talk about some really spooky things. But instead of just me talking, let me invite some of my guests here so that they can tell you some of their spooky things when I come around. My first guest lives right next door, and some of you have seen her before. Come in nice and close so you can see her. There she is. This is my granddaughter, Maggie. Maggie has many weird things happen to her, don't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, she does. And she's going to tell about a really creepy thing that happened in our neighborhood. So tell about when it was first, okay?
All right. So it was around this time of year, actually. It was nighttime, and I was over in the sunroom because I heard a noise coming from, like, there's this house behind us, like across the alley, which we've known has been haunted. One of our family friends used to live there, and he experienced some weird things. So anyway, I was hearing weird things from behind the house. I usually think it's cats because they basically, for some reason, feed the stray cat, which they go all over and stuff. And it's they just feed them, and they don't. There's other things they just feed them.
Yeah, there's lots of stray cats in our neighborhood.
Yeah, and but this was like kind of like a screeching sound, so I went on over to see this thing, like kind of like digging in the dirt. Well, this thing had a small head, a really slender body, like really skinny legs with like oval feet.
How big was it?
Like it was, like it looked to be about the size of a person, but it wasn't a person. It was directly under this light that turns on at motion. But this thing wasn't like a shadow, it was just pitch black. Like as black as that TV up there. The top of that TV up there.
That's black.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened next?
Then I went to go grab my tablet to record, and the thing looked at me, and then it just did like a bear run, which I don't think it would be possible to do that. This thing was not a human, was not some sort of animal. It couldn't have been. Like, how could it run on oval feet? And I actually had this on video, but I deleted it because I thought I had to, but I didn't. Which sucks, and I wish I still had it.
So what did it do when it ran? Where did it run to?
Into the wall. And I've never seen it again, but it was like one of the weirdest things I've probably ever seen.
That is a weird thing. What do you think it might have been?
Some sort of spirit thing that was just doing its thing. Maybe like a djinn, a wendigo, or like a skinwalker or something.
You're running the gamut there of possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Was it scary?
It was really weird, is what it was.
So it wasn't really scary. It was just really weird.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
So that's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that story. Is there anything else you want to tell real quick that isn't a dream?
Yeah. I saw my deceased dog in the yard. Like it was like a zippy black thing running across the fence where its old friend used to be. So yeah.
Yeah, you feel Sal around a lot, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think our pets stick around with us just like others do. Don't play with the candle.
I like fun.
I know, who doesn't? All right, well, anything you want to say before we say goodnight?
Hello.
Okay. All right, Mag, thanks so much. If you head out, go out the back door so it doesn't bang the door.
I'm just gonna stay here.
Okay, that's fine. She's gonna just stay here. So Maggie and Loudon live next door, and they both have inherited, or maybe it isn't inherited. Maybe it's that it's part of the culture that things that they see, we don't just say it's their eyes playing tricks on them or a figment of their imagination, and we acknowledge that there are things beyond the physical that are around. So speaking of things beyond the physical, I have someone else here who lives in maybe the most haunted house in Cadillac. Well, you never know because Cadillac has a lot of haunted houses. But this one is very active, and probably because the person who lives there is extremely psychic and energy aware. So Jerrilyn, you want to come and join me? Hey, this is like, we were saying that, because I've got different guests, what were we going to be, what was it, Oprah?
Scary Springer.
Scary Springer, or
Phil Donahue.
Phil Donahue, or
Sarah Jesse Raphael.
yeah, so we were thinking of all kinds of names for this. So Jerrilyn lives just down the block a little ways, and I've known her since she was a little girl. She lives in one of the historic houses right across from the courthouse, and the builder of the house is pretty present, but he's not the only one, I guess, huh?
No.
So Jerrilyn was on before with Rachael, and she told some of the stories from her house, but she was over this evening and telling about something that's happened like just last week, maybe?
Yeah, so last week I had something happen that kind of changed a little bit of what I normally hear, and so I was telling Rachael and T.I. about it, and come to think about it, it's actually the second time that's happened in the last few months. I actually went to see, and talking about what you were talking with her about too, about us allowing this generation to, acknowledge it. I actually went to an energy healer this summer that my friend Stephanie kind of introduced me to, and her name's Elaine. And one of the things that she told me that was really cool, which was a really cool perspective on energy and ghosts and spiritual gifts and stuff, is that everybody has the same abilities. That we all have the ability to talk to spirits. We all have the ability to feel energy from beyond, or plant energy, or any of this stuff. It just is what you hone. It's what skills you hone and you pay attention to. And how she explained it was, it's like learning a foreign language. It's you can't recognize it, and it's kind of gibberish until you know it. And then once you recognize it and know it and practice it, it comes to you more and more. So that was kind of a cool thing. But so I've been working a lot on it this summer, trying to hone a little bit of my energetic skills. And all of a sudden, it's the stuff that's happening in my house is audible, and that's not happened before. I've not ever actually heard.
Outside our house, there's a murder of crows. Many crows.
Yeah.
They've been hanging out here for days, and you could see the remnants on my car. But about this time of night, they just start calling from the trees over here and Dickens
Dickens Hill.
I bet you can't hear it, but it's like
loud.
a cacophony. It's very loud, the crows call.
We also do it every morning going to school.
Oh, they're doing it in the morning too. Oh, interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
It was just
no,
like,
it's good.
whoa, you're telling about paying attention, and all of a sudden the crows are out.
So, anyway, so I was coming home from my job, and I take school pictures, and I had done a day school photo shoot, and was stopping back by my house to pick up some of my equipment, and then I was heading to a sports shoot. And so I had my mom and one of my coworkers with me, and they were gonna get in their cars and kind of go ahead of me. And I wanted to go in and get a quick drink of water and go to the bathroom, and I was gonna follow them. So I walked in my house, and I heard two women talking in my house, and they were, it was almost like they were like doing the dishes or cleaning up or something like that. You could hear them kind of talking, and I was like, that's weird. And I was like, hello, and nobody answered. Nobody answered back. And I thought, gosh, that's really weird. And I thought, well, maybe it was my mom and Laura. Maybe they came in through the back door and they were grabbing some supplies or whatever. And I also just got a brand new puppy, so I thought, well, maybe, my mom was showing Laura the puppy. And so I walked in the back room, and the door was locked. And I was like, okay, well, it's not that. And so I kind of, do a quick look and, didn't see anything. I have neighbors that are really close to me. So I thought, well, maybe that was that. So I kind of, looked out the window as I was walking into my bathroom. And so how my house is set up is when you walk in through the front door, you come into my living room and my stairs, and then everything else is kind of in a circle. So when you walk through, when you go this way, you'll walk into the dining room, to the kitchen, to the parlor, to back to the living room. And so I kind of just glanced around everywhere, didn't really see anything. And so I went in to use the bathroom, and I'm, of course, by myself. So I left the door open and was like, I'm just going to hurry up, And all of a sudden I heard someone say, hello, who's there? And I was like, whoa, oh my gosh. And so I grabbed the doorknob real quick to shut it, because in my mind it was impossible that it was anything else than an actual person there, because it was so clear and it was so real that I shut the door, because I thought it was Laura and my mom coming in, or it was just very, very present. Mm-hmm. And so I got up and I went out and I started looking around, because I was like, who is in my house? Obviously I know the back door's locked, so right. They didn't come through the back door. And since I was looking at the front door, I knew nobody walked in the front door. And so I'm like, hello, and there was no one there. And so I was like, man, okay, that's so weird. And so my friend Ellen, who also has connection to my house, because her great-grandpa, maybe her great-great-grandfather was actually an employee of John's, and worked at his lumber mills. And so we're pretty sure that he actually helped build my house and lumber some of the wood. And so,
John is who built the house.
Yes, John Wheeler is who built my house. And so I messaged her name's Ellen, and I was like, hey, Ellen, you're not going to believe what happened. And Ellen actually got married in my house. Ellen and Anthony got married in my house. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, they used my living room. And
that was one of the first impressions I got walking in that place. I think there were several marriages.
Yep. Yeah. And so I messaged Ellen, and I was like, dude, you're never going to believe what happened. This just happened. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, I can't believe it. And she messaged me and was like, she's like, every single year they get you. She's like, do you not recognize what the date is? And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And it was actually the anniversary of John's death. He died October 19th. In the house. We're pretty sure he passed away. And we know he died of an aneurysm, and I'm pretty sure it was up in my bedroom is where I think. But his wife, who he was actually in the process of building the house for, her name was Georgina. She died November 11th, and then his second wife, who actually raised the two kids that were Georgina's in this house, her name was Ella, and she actually died the 12th of October.
Wow.
So this whole week is a really active week, and Ellen every year reminds me, like, girl, you gotta set a timer to your phone or something, because every single year they
put it on
catch
your
you.
calendar. Repeat
like,
yearly.
Warning, today you are going to.
Ready for some interdimensional.
Right. And this time of year in my house is crazy active. Like, it's the most active time that my house ever is. From now until like solstice, really.
It's through Christmas.
Yeah, it's through Christmas. It's through Christmas.
This time of year it's so interesting. It's even the ancients in all cultures, this time of year between the vernal equinox and the winter solstice, as things are getting darker and darker, and talking about the veil being so thin.
Yeah, thin.
And I don't know if it's actual, but in my personal experience, this is a time of year when family members have died.
Yeah.
And it just seems like there's death, that it's a time when people check out.
Passage,
yeah.
Passage. Well, and the thing is how I felt about it was, what is the name of that movie? Can't remember the name. There's some movie that's like a spooky story with like Nicole Kidman, and it was where she was actually the one. She thought she was being haunted, but it was actually her that was doing the haunting. The others, that's what it was. That's kind of what I felt like, because I felt like, okay, time doesn't really exist, and we are two parallel timelines running, and it was like the veil was thin enough that they heard me and was spooked out by saying, oh my gosh, who's here? Like, hello, who's here? And I heard them thinking, someone's at my house. And really, when we said this last time we talked about the house too, is that I'm actually a part of this house's history.
Yes.
Not the other way around. And so to me, it was like they felt like I was intruding on their space when
they sensed you, and you sensed them. So
yeah.
as the veil thins, it isn't just that we can see through the veil.
Mm-hmm.
When the veil thins, both sides come closer together.
Yeah.
And I think we interact with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say both sides, I'm talking about the human dead and us. But that veil isn't just between the formerly human spirit, but there are other things that come through, like Maggie was talking about. And she said that was about this time of year. I remember her telling me about that and describing it as this just really black, really fast creature. And it's something that, when you're sensitive to notice things beyond just the corporeal, just what is in front of us, you can see those things. And I think when it looked at her and saw her looking back, and
scared
just
it
as
much
and
as
took up. So probably the same thing with the ladies in your house.
Well, and I think that happens a lot in my house. Like, I think a lot of the times I intrude on their memory, rather than them trying to haunt me. I know that John is very aware, and I know that John has, he's woken, like at first, especially when the first time I lived there, he would wake me up if the dishes weren't done. He was very much that type of man. Or if the door was not locked, he, all of a sudden you'd hear that door go swing and slam against the register. Oh yeah. When we first moved into the house, the basement door kept on opening, and I kept on going and shutting it. I had a toddler that was crawling, and it's a scary, like, Michigan basement, stairs.
Steep stairs.
And
deadly stairs.
And spooky. The basement is the scariest part of our house. Like, my dog will not even walk by the basement door if it's open. Will not.
Wow.
And so, we actually did some closing off spells. Remember,
to close
that space, so that we
to
could
seal
keep
the
that,
basement
seal it
from
off.
the living space.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but like, he would do that type of stuff, and I know that I've had those interactions with him, where I know that he's present. And when I moved back in, I physically felt him come behind me and go, like, oh, you're back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So John, I know, is aware, and I also feel memory energy. But the women, I think, are mostly energy or memory energy. Like, I don't have them talk to me or speak to me, or
But
you know.
you hear each other through time.
Now we do. That's a new thing. It hasn't happened. I was asking my husband earlier when the first time was that I heard him talk, and he said that it was this summer. That he had brought the kids to his parents' house because his dad's a pastor, and they had a special group coming in called God's Helping Hands, and they were doing this like sing along thing, and so he was out of town at their house, and I was by myself, and I heard my dog and I actually heard someone say hello, and like almost like they were walking up the steps, and I thought it was my mom or like my Aunt Kathy or something. And Max got up and rah, 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 started barking and ran down the stairs, and then all of a sudden Max comes back up and is looking around and is like, wait a minute,
where'd that go?
There's no one there. And so that was the first time I heard it, and but yeah, so
That's great.
yeah, the women are pretty active with the kids. I think the kids are who they speak to more than me. I don't think they really connect with me much. I sense them and can see them, can feel them. But the women have reached out to Gillian quite a bit. I don't remember if I told that story last time I was on here or not.
Go ahead. It's okay.
About did I tell this story?
I don't know. You can
I can't remember. With Gillian, who also has a very sensitive spirit. She was starting to like go to the bathroom in her bed at night, and she was scared to get up, and she would stand there at the door and cry and say, "Can I go to the bathroom? Can I go to the bathroom?" We're like, "Yes, go. Like, what are you waiting for? Go." And come to find out, she had told me that the woman who visits her in the bathroom sings to her while she's going to the bathroom at night. And I actually told you the song. Do you remember the song? You don't remember it? I can't remember it now either. It was a few years ago. But it wasn't something I sang to Gillian. It's not something Gillian would have known. And she hummed the song back to me. And I said, have you asked her to not do that? And she goes, no, but she just sings to me, and then she tells me to go back to bed. Like, I'm not allowed to be in the hallway. I got to go to bed. I can't be out of my bed. And I'm like, that's weird, because that's not a rule that we have,
Right.
And that's what it was. It was either the nanny or the mom. I'm not sure which one.
Right.
That wouldn't let her use the bathroom.
Sing to her in the bathroom.
Yeah, but she's the one that the mom is the one that paces the halls at night too.
Mm-hmm.
She paces the halls about 11 o'clock every night.
Oh.
She goes in and walks up the stairs, walks down the hall, checks the rooms, comes down the hall, and then she's gone.
Wow.
So
That's every
pretty
night?
cool.
That happens every night, or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not as to be honest with you, it's not been as prevalent the last year, but I bet you it picks up here.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure
not.
it will. Yeah.
Yeah, because my husband, of course, is a non-believer. He doesn't believe in any of this stuff. And our old dog, Annabelle, would get up and do the rounds with Ella. Annabelle would walk with her and walk and come in and lay down. And I'm like, really? You think that Annabelle just does that every night by herself? Like, you think that's a coincidence that every night at 11 o'clock she gets up and goes and walks? And he's like, I don't know. Maybe she just has a timer in her. I'm like, no.
Yeah, right.
But
That's great.
yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. Anything else you want to tell us about?
Not tonight. We'll
Okay.
save it for another night.
Yeah, we'll do this again. I love, having spooky friends that we could talk about this stuff just openly and go there and share it and check things out, and when things get crazy, go help take care of things.
Yeah, call in some people.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's nice to have allies that you can call in to help you when you need some help. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thanks, Jerrilyn. So, let's see. Who am I now? Scary Springer. Is that this one?
Sally Jesse Raphael.
Sally Jesse Raphael. So, let's have Rachel come join me. Rachel's in town for good friend Scooter passed away, and So she came into town as we were all together, and we've been dealing with a lot of people checking out, right?
Yeah, a whole lot.
A whole lot of people checking out here. Let me go like this so that we can see close
Too
together.
many.
Yeah, I think it gets old pretty quickly.
Hopefully it's chilling out soon.
Yeah, seriously. So,
Hello, everybody.
so Rachel and Dominic live in Nashville, and they are looking for a house. They want to move to find a house that they can buy together. And so Rachel's looking at houses, and every once in a while she'll send a picture and say, "How does this one feel? What do you get from here?" So,
When I get listings, when there's a place I want to look at, I send the listing to T.I. and Jerrilyn on a group text. I'm like, how does this place feel to you? And recently, sometime this summer, without telling them, I did a little test. I tested them. And I tested them, and I sent them the listing for the house where the story The Conjuring takes place, because it was on the market for like $1 million or something. And so I sent them the listing. I was like, what do you guys think about this one? And T.I. was like, it looks kind of dark. And Jerrilyn was like, no, do not. She's like, what's going on in that upstairs room? She's like, I wouldn't set foot in that place. And I was like, okay, you guys passed the test.
yeah, like we could clear pretty much any place, but not that place.
And there was like, there was like a library, there was like a little doll too, like set up in the
What
library.
the hell is the doll?
And, yeah, and Jerrilyn was like, what's with the dolls? I was like, okay, you guys passed.
Should I move over a little? You're kind of out of the.
No, it's fine.
You're okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll sit in the foreground.
Sit in the foreground. He's a little bad.
Such a nerd.
Snuggle with him.
Should I just launch into there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this thing happened recently this summer and September. And go ahead.
Well, it's really nice to have the resource, by the way, too. Like when we're moving into a house, or we know we're going to live in a new house, and to know that, like, if there is something spooky in there, it's not necessarily a problem. It's like some people have lawyers and exterminators in their family, but I have creepy mediums in my family that can deal with that kind of stuff. So it's nice to have that resource, because, like, who knows, maybe the houses that nobody wants to buy because they're spooky are really cheap, right?
Right. The ones that stay on the market.
Yeah, we can deal with that. So it's been, I did have a story that I shared with Spooky Miss T.I. about house hunting like almost 2 years ago, actually, where I did the key spell, the new home spell.
Oh, right.
Remember that? I did it on the new moon, and literally 2 weeks later, we got news that we could stay in our house for much longer. And, like, that wasn't what I was intending, but that was what it turned out to be. And it has worked, actually, because we're still there, and we still have time, and we're still looking. But it's more of an active thing where, like, I have my my realtor apps, and I have my settings set, and we're looking at houses. We have a realtor, we pick out places, we go tour places, all that kind of stuff. And I realized, like, in August that I have been going about this in such a way that it's, like, very, like, perfunctory, really
Passive.
really passive. You're wiggling the camera.
Oh, sorry.
Really, because I'm just, like, going about it in a really, like, analytical way. Like, we need this many rooms, and we need this much space, and we need a yard, and, like, but I had not ever stopped to think, what do I really want? Where do I picture myself in a perfect world, in the most ideal situation? What would be the place we ended up? And I came upon this thought while Leela and I were making a stop animation movie, and it's our Whispery Tales characters, which these little animals, and they have a persona and stories, and it takes place in this fictional place called Whispery Forest, and it's this little, like, forest farm town, and it's got all these characters. And so we're setting up an outdoor scene, and I'm looking for a backdrop, right? And so I look for a painting. I'm Googling images of a painting of old farmhouse. And then all of these pictures come up with these beautiful farmhouses with these big trees and these fences in the front and big porches and like and gardens all around them on a country road, you know, and I'm just like, oh my God. I'm like, that is what I want. Like, that is my dream, to have a house out somewhere on a country road, a big white farmhouse with tree swing and flower gardens and room for a vegetable garden. And like, that is what I want. And it was the very first time I've ever let myself go there. And so I take this painting that I find on Google and I send it to a realtor, and I'm like, I found our house. Here it is. It doesn't exist. But at that moment, I made a promise to myself to put that intention out there, like to go ahead and dream about it, because those thoughts and intentions, you know, they set a cosmic path, right? And so I did that. And I'm thinking, you know, there's nowhere in our school district that looks like this place. But it's fun to think about, and let's see where it takes me. And not 2 days later, in the morning, I get all of my like emails with all the listings for all of my pre-programmed preferences for my house listings of what I'm looking for. You know, you have your little filters, and it's like, you know, this much space, what the price is, you know, the plot and distance from wherever. And I have it all programmed in there. So the stuff that I get sent are all these things that are already in my filters. And in the morning, I'm going through and I see this house that looks nearly identical to the painting that I had sent my realtor 2 days before. And it was eerie. Like, it was eerie. And I was like, oh, this is a sign. And I'm like, oh my God, it works. I can do it. And I look at it, and it's like, I'm looking at all of the specs to it, you know, and it was one of my several realtor apps that I have all of my settings in. And I noticed that I have programmed, like, the farthest away I want to look from where we live now is like 40 minutes or something like that, because we need to be close enough to town where we could like go in and do studio work or go to the airport or something. And so I look at this listing, and it's gorgeous. And it's this beautiful white farmhouse with this green roof with this big front porch. It's on 8 acres. But it's an hour outside of town. I programmed 40 miles, and this house was like 57 miles outside of town. It was in a completely different county. It would be a completely different lifestyle change. But I'm obsessed with this house. I dream about it. I can't stop thinking about it. It's below our budget, actually, at that time. It was like cheaper than what we had budgeted. And because it's way out there. And so I send the listing to our realtor, and she's like, do you want to go see it? And I was like, I don't know, should I? Like, it's really far out there. And so I sat with it for a while, because I'm thinking, if I really like this place, it's really far away, it's going to cause a problem, because like Dominic's not going to want to go that far out. Leela's excited about the idea of living in the country, but Virgil doesn't want to live in an old house. He's like, I don't want to live in a creepy old house, Mom. I'm like, you don't have to worry about it. We've got Amma. And so I thought about it for like a week, and I was going someplace, like I was going out of town. And so I was like, okay, what I told myself is when I get back to town, it's still on the market, I'm going to go look at it. So I got back the following week, and it's still on the market. So I talked to my realtor, who's luckily a really good friend, because I'm like, I know this place is really far outside of town, and this is a risk. Would you be willing to drive out there with me? And she was like, totally, you know. And so we schedule a time to tour the house. And I drive out there early one morning. I drop Leela off at school and drive out there. It's an hour away, hour south of Nashville. And I drive down there, and I'm getting excited about the idea of like living this. The land is so beautiful down there. You know, it's like I'm starting to really feel psyched about living in this open spaces. Like, you know, we live in a really nice old neighborhood, but it's still pretty urban right now. And I'm driving there, and I'm excited, and I'm like talking to T.I. on the speakerphone on my car while I'm going there. You know, because she's curious about this, because I've been talking about this, you know, for a couple weeks or a week and a half or something. And so I get off of the main road, and I'm driving through the little town that the property is by, and it's this cute little town, and it's got this like antique store, and it's got a couple of stores with the same lady's name on it. It's like a bakery and a general store. There's a coffee shop. There's an antique store. There's all these cool old houses all around there in this beautiful little country lane. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so pretty out here. And I pull onto the road that is like the area where this little town is called Lewiston, Tennessee. And so I'm on like Tennessee Highway 99, and I turn off of 99 onto, and I can't remember what the name of the road is, the Caney Fork Road, I think is what it was called, which is the little creek that runs over there. And as soon as I pulled onto the road, I get like this wave of excitement and euphoria. Like, oh my God. Like, I feel this place pulling me. Like, I feel this, like, I'm like about to approach my destiny is what it feels like in my brain. And the light, it's like morning light. So it's this beautiful golden light. And there's hay bales, and there's cows, and there's sheep, and there's horses out there, and it's like this skinny little road, and there's all these cool rocks popping out of the ground, and there's this beautiful little creek bed, and I'm just like totally falling crazy in love with this place. And I've got my little GPS going, and I'm following the GPS, and it's a narrow road, and it's windy, so I'm looking at it like every few seconds, you know, while I'm talking to my mom. And I'm talking to her, and I go by this little cemetery, and I'm like, oh, there's a cool cemetery over there. It's a teeny tiny little cemetery. And she was like, oh, you should go check that out when you're done. And I was like, yeah, cool. And so I'm like
to check out cemeteries.
Yeah, just old cemetery in that area. There's so much history there.
Yeah.
There's so much cool history there.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving, and I'm looking at my GPS, and it says, you know, I'm going to turn left here in like 0.4 miles. And so I'm looking up the road, and I'm looking down at the GPS, and I look down at the GPS, look up at the road, look down at the GPS, and all of a sudden my turn is in 2.2 miles. And I was like, I didn't pass the road, but it just rerouted me. And I said that to T.I. out loud, and she was like, okay, pay attention to that kind of thing. And she was like, okay, it's rerouting you for there's some strange cosmic reason that it's rerouting you, so pay attention. She's like, look around. Look around you. And I was like, okay. And I was like getting so excited, and she's like, what? You said something to me.
I said, what is there? I said, there's something coming up.
You were telling me to pay attention to these feelings.
And pay attention to what's around you, because these are all important signs.
Yeah.
And I said, pay attention. You're heading towards something.
Well, you were just like, pay attention to these feelings, and you were like, center yourself and open up.
Yes.
Too. Like, she was like, center yourself and turn on your senses, basically.
Yeah,
pay attention.
Yes, don't get so excited about the house that you don't pay attention to what's going on there, because
yes. So you were telling me to ground myself and to pay attention, and that there's some, you were saying like there.
Don't ignore anything. Everything.
No, wait, you were saying like there's something. You were just kept saying pay attention.
And the reason I was doing that is because I was getting a really weird feeling. I was getting like from where I am, you know, I'm connected to Rachael, and we're talking on the phone as she's going there, and I was like, there's something there that I'm not sure if this is a good place for you to be.
Yeah,
you were
like,
so excited.
I felt
and
this
I didn't say that to her.
magnetism toward it.
I just wanted her to pay attention, because, you know, I know that sometimes when things call you, they don't call you for a good reason. Just saying.
And I was for sure being called. I mean, it was very kind of strange that this place showed up in my pre-filtered realtor settings, and it was a good 20 miles outside of what I had programmed, and it was the only one. When after all of this, I went and looked back, and I was like, did I screw up my settings? And it was like, no, this one popped up in there inexplicably. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I'm following the GPS now that's taking me a different route, and it's taking me like way around this like wooded area or whatever, and I come to this stop sign, and I turn left, and it's called Bethbreer Road or something like that. And I turn left, and coming up on the right is this old church. And it's like this old churchyard, and it's surrounded by a graveyard. It's this white building, and it looks like Civil War era. Really, really old. There's like a big weathered millstone in the front that looks like it was created as a bench or something, and it's like got wrought iron gates around it, and it was so beautiful. I mean, it's like the hour is golden, and it was this beautiful country road and this old country church with this beautiful steeple and stained glass windows surrounded by a graveyard. And I was telling her about it, and I took a picture and sent her the picture. And then I kept going to the address, and the address is not even a mile past there. And I pull into the driveway, and my friend Mindy, who's our realtor, wasn't there yet. And I pull into the driveway, and I just felt like I was coming home. Like I felt like I was arriving at the place of my birth. And I got out of the car, and there's fruit trees around, and there's 2 huge silver maples in the front yard. There's a huge sycamore tree in the back. There's this little shed that looks like an old mill house. It looks like an old water mill, but it's like a playhouse, and it's surrounded by like bramble and garden, and there's a big front porch, and there's a swing, and like the land was like 6, almost 7 acres. And the whole back lot was like full of goldenrod. And it's golden hour in the morning, and I was just like absolutely enchanted by this place. And I'm on the phone with my mom, and she says, turn around and take a selfie of yourself with the house in the background. And so I did. And the first thing I noticed, though, is too that the paint was peeling. It was in definitely a state of disrepair already, visibly. But the land and the place, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is my house. I want to live here. And so Mindy gets there, and we go around back, and it is just thrashed. The place is thrashed. There's broken windows. The concrete in the back is cracking. There's a beautiful little gazebo in the back, but it's falling apart. There's windows on the back, sunroom missing. I mean, when I say there's cracks in the cement, like there was a crack like this wide in the cement leading up to the back door. And then we go in there, and it's kind of moldy, musty smelling, and it smells like a dog lives there, but it's also like damp smelling. But there's been a drought for like months, so it's not damp outside at all.
But it's damp under it. And the house is like, it's got a lot of space. It has 2 fireplaces.
There wasn't like original flooring. It was like vinyl flooring, which I was bummed out about because there was some vinyl flooring missing in one of the doorways, and you could see that it was like broad plank wood underneath there. And so, yeah, and there's like water damage. It looks like an upstairs bathroom had leaked and caused, like, it was just thrashed. And it like, but like it had this energy. It had this vibe. Like it itself was a being, you know, like it was a member of my family. Like that's what it felt like. It felt like I had found a stray dog that was like going to be in my family. And we like there's like old stairs in the front hall is like it's pretty dark, and like the stairs it's real dirty in there. It looks like there was a bathroom in each one of the upstairs rooms, and the bathrooms looked like they had been newly remodeled but not used because there was like bug carcasses and dead mice in the bathtubs. And in one of those rooms, it was obviously a little kid's room. 2 little kids slept in there. And the bathroom, it was gross. It was like these people are like either really busy or they're have physical things going on or mental things going on, or they just are slobs. And I was really kind of put off by the disrepair is one thing, but like dirty mess is like it's I can see past it, but it was just like this place needed more work than I was qualified to put in. And it's also like the price was below our budget, but what we would have had to put in to fix it up was like at least half of what the list price was. So Mindy and I are both like, this place is thrashed. Oh, but there is too, like, this beautiful stained glass window over the front door. So, like, you know how there's, like, the window above?
Right, the
door?
transom.
Yeah,
window.
and it's just this, like, beautiful, like, what it once was. Like, I could see it, like, what it once was. And I could stand there in the front and see it, like, glistening and gleaming like it was new. And, but it is freaking thrashed. And so Mindy and I are both like, yeah, this place is thrashed. Let's just check out outside and see what it's like on the outside. And so we walk outside and, you know, check out the gazebo and, like, kind of look at it, like, what would it take to fix it. And it's totally fallen apart, but it's a small structure, you know, you just need somebody that knows how to do that. And there's this beautiful, huge sycamore tree in the back. And sycamore trees were my Granny Leila's favorite. Like, she grew up in a place just north of Nashville and she talks about the sycamore tree on her land when she was a little girl. And so sycamore trees are like, I'm drawn to them as well. And then just off the side of the house, across this little easement, is that playhouse, tree house looking thing. And it's got this big, huge mill wheel, and it's got stairs that go up to this, like, loft house. And then there's, like, this little underneath porch. And there's this cool stone wall that goes around 3 sides of it. And we get closer and realize that underneath this mill wheel is this big empty cement pond that's, like, full of, like, bramble, and it had some trash in it. It had, like, a tire in there and, like, a nasty kid's bike. And I see this, like, I see this, like, iron railing just on the other side of the stone pond. And I'm like, what is that? And I walk around there, and there is a flight of stairs that go down into the darkness of the earth, okay? It is a cave. It is a cave, and it's got pipes that go in it, and there's a little plaque over the top of the door that says, this is a natural spring well, that and the mill and the pump was built in 1913 by the L&N company that was building the railroad, and it was used for the railroad workers to come and get water. And so that trough there, so the wheel actually did pump the water out of the cave into the pond, and then it would go into this trough, and they would fill up their canteens in the trough. And there's a little plaque next to the stone wall that says these stones are from this mill in this town nearby called Ames Station that is a dead town now. And it was like the town that used to be there before Lewisburg was there. And the millstones came from a mill, some guy's name from 1800s or something. But the stairs went down into the. I'm gonna try to pull it up for you guys. So,
well, what you could do is post it.
I can't post it, but I'm gonna try to just show it to you this way. Okay. So can you guys see that?
Oh yeah, that's good.
See, okay. So those stairs, and it went down into that into the cave, the stairway to hell. And it went into this dark place. And when I stood at the top of the stairs, I was like, like, I want to get the hell out of here. And this is the plaque.
It'll be backwards, though.
Oh, yeah, it will be backwards. So I'll show you what it says. But this is the plaque was above the door. And what it says is, the steps into this freshwater spring cave were built in 1913 by the L&N Railroad to provide water for the workers while they built the tracks. And so that's how old those stairs are. They're over 100 years old. And then there was another plaque by the trough there that says these millstones, remnants from the John Higgs Mill, which began operating in 1882 near the Blue Hole on the west side of the East Rock Creek in Ames Station, which is the dead town. And let's see if I can show you. Here, let me turn the brightness up here. And so there's the little mill house with the little wheel. Can you guys see it? All right. Yeah, oh, hell no is right. Stairway straight into hell. And then here is the house. Okay. And I even looking at it now, like I even like, oh my God, I love that place. And isn't it? It's just so beautiful, but it's spooky as hell. Do you have something to add?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when Rachel said I told her to put her back to the house and take a selfie, I was trying to see who it was that was looking at her from the house because I could sense somebody there waiting for her to come. There's the selfie.
And you know what though? Okay, so let's see. And this is the side of the house without me in it that I sent Ti.
Yeah. But then I felt a very ominous thing. But I also, we went there together. Before we get that, but I had a dream that night that she was there, and bouncing the table.
Yeah.
I had a dream that that Leela was in the yard playing, and she heard singing coming from that down below those stairs. And I saw her walk and stand at the top of those stairs.
I don't want to hear this.
And she walked down into that darkness. And Rachel said she won't even, she
won't even go in the basement, the brightly lit basement of our lame, boring house at home, and she would never ever go into the stairway into hell.
Except the voice that
voice
was
was
singing
mine.
was Rachel's singing voice, and it wasn't her, which scared the hell out of me. And
You didn't tell me that part. That makes me want to throw up.
Yeah, well, that's why I didn't tell you that part until we're here speaking. But that place, that was a dangerous place.
And so we look around it and realize that this is not the place, but it is so beautiful and it is so enchanting. And I had dreams about that place before I even went there. Mm-hmm. I had dreams about it every night since I found the listing. And in my dreams, I was going up, and in my dream, I walked up to the house, and it was in the state that it was in when I, like what you saw, disrepair, paint peeling, broken windows, dead things. And in my dream, I walked up onto the front porch, and I put my hand on the wall next to the front door, and this shimmer, like this sheen fell off away, and it turned into the way that it looked when it was brand new.
I'm thinking it might have been a past life.
It felt, and then so then Mindy left, we were done, Mindy left, and I stayed there, sat in the car in the driveway, and I looked at this place, and I felt like I didn't want to leave. Mm-hmm. I don't want to leave. And so what I'm telling myself is, I can come back here. I know where it is. I can come back here anytime. And so I'm pulling out of the driveway, and I felt like I was leaving home, and I hearing in my brain, it's my slice of heaven. It's my slice of heaven. It's my slice of, it's a piece of heaven. It's mine. And it was, and the light is golden, and it's like I could imagine what it looked like when it was new. And so what I'm thinking is I could totally restore this place, but I can't. I don't have that skill. And so I'm pulling out. I'm backing out of the driveway, and when people are showing their house, they have to skedaddle when there's people coming to see the house, and so there's nobody in there, and I'm pulling out. So the driveway is over here on this side, right? And I'm pulling out, and I see movement up in this window on the side where the cave was. And I see a person walking. There's a window over here on this side. Wait, let me see, make sure that's right.
Watch out for that.
Yeah, I'm about to light myself on fire. Okay, so there's a window here, and then there's a window on this side, and I see somebody moving, like I see their silhouette in the light coming through this window, and I see somebody just walking across that room. And it didn't freak me out or anything. I saw it, and I was like, oh, yeah, there's somebody up there. And I didn't give me the willies. It didn't throw me at all. And I pulled out, and I'm start to drive away, and the farther I get, the slower I'm getting. Like, it is holding me. And I didn't want to leave this place. And I thought about it, like so hard. Like I in my mind, I'm like, I could just turn right back around and go there and just hang out there until the people come back. And walk around there, you know, like I could just stay there. And I'm thinking, and in my mind, I'm like, you're right here. You can just go back, you know. And I'm thinking that until I get all the way to the end of the road where the light changes, and then I notice what time it is, and like I've got stuff to do, and like all of a sudden I'm present again. And so I call my mom, and I say, and I'm telling her, and she's here with Stephanie actually. And I'm telling her, like, oh my God, wait till you hear this. And, like, I sent her the picture of the stairway to hell. And she's like, oh my God. And too, like, that cute little cemetery that I passed before I got detoured. She says, just stop in there. And you know, and maybe there'll be something that, because you're kind of tied to this place right now. Maybe there'll be something in there that'll pop out at you. Like maybe there'll be somebody in there that'll tell you something about it. So I totally did that. And like this is like, it's funny because my whole life I've always been around this kind of spooky stuff. And like I've witnessed it, not necessarily firsthand participate in it or even acknowledge that I could really. Or like I've noticed it like, oh yeah, there's something weird about this place. I'm going to call Ti and say, can you please fix this because it's freaking me out. And this time I like went into this place and I like turned my phone on like airplane and I just like, I was not afraid. I was like wide open. It was like, I felt totally safe. I felt totally confident. And I walked around in this little cemetery and there was nothing really in there that was connected to this place really. There were a couple of things that stood out. I was drawn to the back of the cemetery, and I thought it was like the back of the cemetery, but as I got to the back, I wanted to keep going into the woods back there, and I was like, there's something back there. Maybe there's an old cemetery back there. But there was one spot. As soon as I got out of the vehicle, my car, and like kind of grounded myself and like set whatever, calibrated myself to the situation, I felt a ringing in my right ear and this like pressure pain like here on the side of my head. And it was just kind of like a weird, like it was definitely, I was sensing it. There wasn't actually any pain. It was definitely being perceived in a different cognitive part of my awareness. And it drew me to this back spot where there is a grave of a little girl. She was 7 and her name was Patsy Ann, and I just felt like it was connected to that in some way, but that was all that I knew, and I couldn't get anything else, but I was still drawn to the edges of the cemetery. And there was one other place that I was drawn to as well. As soon as I got out of the car, there was movement in my left periphery, and I look over and there's just like a grave that's surrounded by this really tall goldenrod, and so I was more pulled to the back, so I went to the back first, and then after I went back there, I went up to the front. And this grave with the goldenrod that was like, hey, was a grave of an old man named Virgil. And Virgil is my son. And I was like, oh, I wonder what he's telling me. And so I just remembered his name, and then I got back in the car, and that's when I called T.I., and I was like, listen to this, and sent her the pictures and stuff. I was like, I can't believe this has happened. This is freaking wild. I'm like, when you come, she was going to come in a few weeks to watch kids when I was at a music festival out west with the Warblers. And I was like, when you come a couple of days early and we'll come out here and we'll check it out. And what I did is I took that name, Virgil Tankersley was the guy's name, and I just did a Google of Marshall County, Tennessee, Lewisburg, and that name, and it sent me to this whole publication of this like newspaper from the early 20th century, early 1900s, with all these happenings in the area around. And from all of those things, I kind of got little flags that were like, this is associated with this spot. And so I feel like my finding the Virgil grave led me to this publication that gave me some ideas of what that place might have been associated with. And I'm thinking that it might have been bootleggers or something. There was some kind of weird energy coming out of the cave to hell. But then T.I. came a few weeks later, and I took her out there, and maybe we should save that for another time because it's getting late.
What time is it?
It's 10 o'clock.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. When I went, it was pretty.
It was pretty amazing.
It was pretty amazing.
So maybe we should save that for part 2.
Well, but you won't be here for a while.
Well,
how long are you going to be here on the 12th?
Well, just for that night.
Yeah. So.
But there's also holidays, but you can tell that part too, you know.
Yeah. Should we
keep going?
It's not going to take too long. We've gone longer than an hour before. Is that okay? If that's okay with you, and if you're too tired, go to bed and you can come watch it later or something. So
I'm still awake.
I won't sleep for a week.
Yeah.
Okay, so we drive out there, and it really is beautiful countryside. It's just gorgeous countryside. Hills, the central Tennessee rolling hills. And when I'm in the South, though, I always feel like the slave connection. So I get this oppressive feeling in places, and I have to move past that. So we're driving, and you how do we go? We went to the cemetery first.
Yeah, well, when we turned on to that Caney Fork Road.
Right.
Remember? Jeez, T.Y., leave the candle alone. Just quit playing with it. You've been playing with it for this whole time.
I know. I have to. So
we pulled onto that road where I said the light changed.
Yes.
And
yes.
I wasn't gonna say anything because I told her what happened to me, but I wasn't gonna point it out to see if she if she noticed it herself. And as soon as we pulled onto that road, she was like, "Whoa,
what's going on?"
And I was like, "This was the spot, like right here." And it turned to like that amber, golden, pinkish.
It's
light.
The color. It's the color that when I'm in the astral plane, that's the color of everything.
Yeah, it's where the veil is thin,
and you can see better. It's like everything is clearer somehow. Everything just
it's sharpened.
Everything's sharpened.
Yeah.
Colors is different. Colors brighter. It's really interesting.
This whole area.
So we pull into the cemetery, and she was telling me about this old cemetery with the church, and this cemetery has a church on it too. But I knew right away it wasn't that one.
It wasn't that one. That one was newer.
Right.
So we were like, let's go past this one. We'll stop at this one.
No, we stopped at that one first.
Did we? Oh, you're right. We did.
We stopped at that one first, and when I'm waiting on the table, I'm fidgety. So I get out of the car, and she had not told me any of her experience at this cemetery.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna.
She didn't tell me a word.
Divulge a thing. I was just gonna let her.
Yeah.
Go around and see what happens.
And she just said, see where it takes you. And I get out and I start to walk, and I feel like this, I don't get migraines, but it felt like I couldn't see like out of my right eye. And I was like, oh my God, my head, the side of my head, this is, I was pressing my head. I didn't say anything. And Rachel said, are you okay? And I said, my head just all of a sudden really hurts.
And I was like, was it the right side in your ear, like right behind your ear?
I'm holding my head here. And then I start walking right to that same spot, the back of the cemetery.
She made a beeline.
Right to the edge and to the woods. And I said, there's something back there. And then as I'm walking back, I'm walking over, I'm not paying attention. We're going to leave now, we're going to go to the next thing. And
she's just walking between the headstones, like down the row.
Yep.
Between the headstones.
And I was walking over one, and I just got this real rush sense. I said, "Whoa, whose grave did I just walk on?"
You said, "Whoa, yeah, who was that?
Who was that? Whose grave am I on?" And I had already passed it, and
I waited till you came up by me.
Yeah. And I said, well, who was that? And we turned around and looked back, and it was the little girl.
I knew when you said, "Whoa, what was that?" I knew. That's because I was watching you, and I was watching to see if you picked up on that spot.
Yeah.
And as soon as she passed the grave of the little girl, she says, "Whoa, what was that?" And I was like, but then she kept talking, and you kept talking. You were like, "There's something with this family over here," because there was a bunch of a group of graves with the same name, and like they're probably just like she was focusing on that.
Right.
That was behind, but then she walked past that little girl's grave and was like, "Whoa!"
And it was like she went up and went.
What was that? And
that was the head. That
yeah,
was the connection.
And that's what I told her. I was like, "Okay, so when I came here, I got out of the car. I felt pressure on the right side of my head and the back, and my ears started ringing. I went straight to the back, and I went to this grave right here.
And that's the one where it grabbed me.
Yep. Yeah. And she was like, "Whoa, what was that?" And so it just kind of like and validated what had happened to me, and also her feeling as well, because it had happened to us in the same way without communicating about it.
And I felt that the little girl had died from a blunt, a head injury. Like, Rachel thought car accident, but I saw like something hit her.
Yeah, she got whacked in the head, like she fell or...
No, she didn't fall. She was standing up and she got hit in the head. It was
whacked.
Like a bat or a beam of something, but something hit her in the head and took her right out.
Yep, and that was the
Not right
impression
out. I mean,
that I got. She got bonked in the head.
And then died from it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then we walked over towards the road in the cemetery, and there were Davis graves there.
Yeah, there were a couple of Davis graves. They were newer.
Yeah. But so then we go back to the car, and we're pulling out and driving around back again by the backside, and there's a field on the other side, and there's woods.
Wait, first I was going to back out in front of the church and then go out the same way that we came, and you said, "Can we go? Is there a road that goes around?" She's like, "Let's go out the other side there. Let's pull around and go around the other side."
Yep. And so we did, and as we're getting near to the road, I said, "Stop here."
Right before we pulled out onto the main road, she's like, "Just stop here. I got to check this out."
There's something here. And we get out of the car.
Yeah, and we put in park, and she's like, "Is there something back there?"
Yeah, and instead of going towards the cemetery, I walked towards this wooded area.
Toward the creek.
Toward the creek.
Which is about a quarter mile away.
There, yeah. And I got to the edge of the foliage, and I just stopped. I was not going any further. There was there was like this energy coming from that place. And
I peeked through there and I was like, "Oh my God, you should see this." And what it was like all of these beautiful, humongous, exposed limestone rocks. And what it looked like was an ancient creek bed, because there was definitely some stones that were carved in a circular, like there was a rock that looked like the back of a chair up high, but it had been carved like by water, obviously, into this half circle, and then there was one underneath it, and you could sit in it like a chair, and then all these other limestone rocks looked like tables, and there were these huge exposed like boulders, and there's like cracks between them that you could jump down, and it was like 4 feet down, and you could climb all around them, and I stepped on them, and they were like, it had like, I put my hand on it and it felt like warm, but not like tactily warm. Like it had
energetic,
a very distinctive energy. It had a vibration, and I felt butterflies, like giggly. Like I felt giggly, like, "Oh my God." Like I was so excited. Like, "Tia, you have got to come back here and see this, because I can't describe it." And she's like, "Nope, I'm going to stay right here."
Yeah, and I felt very adamant that the two of us could not go in that space together, because I wasn't sure we would come out of that space. I think it was what's that called?
A stray sod.
Stray sod. It was like
an enchanted
place where elementals, where the fae exist. And Rachel said that in there, she says, "Oh my God, there's a doe and a fawn right here, right near me."
Yeah, they were right on the rocks, like 15 feet away.
I gotta say that when you have animals like that luring you in, and you feel euphoric in a place, and you feel the energy of the earth and the rocks, I felt like I needed to stay outside of there and be that anchor and keep a connection outside of there. And I had the
I was totally
I had the Antakarana on my hands at the time, and I was just tracing it, because that's a symbol that connects the physical and the spirit. And that there's another name for it, I can't think of the name of it, but I was tracing that, just reminding everything around that we are physical and spirit, and that we are not going to stay in wherever that place is.
And I was definitely feeling like lured or like enchanted by this. Like, I mean, I was like, I was being charmed by this place. Like, I felt giddy and giggly and like, this was such a cool place. Like, it's so exciting. This is so cool.
I want to play here, you know.
Yeah, I want to hang
explore
out
and
here.
go down in these little crevices and
Yeah.
these little stuff. And yeah, and I felt very strongly that somebody needed to anchor outside of there. And then after a while it came out. And then we came out of the cemetery and we turned left. And we're
headed back toward the old church.
Yeah, but you said, so see if you could tell me where to go to get to the next cemetery.
Yeah.
And we're driving along.
And there were a couple of turns because
Yeah.
I'd been there couple weeks earlier, and so I knew where, but I was going to let her tell me where to go.
Yeah, so and I said, just around this bend, there's going to be a road to the left. Take that.
You said there's going to be a stop sign at the end here, and then turn left.
Turn left.
And I was like, yep.
And then there was the other left. There was another left, right?
The road curved around to the left, and it went over a creek bed.
Creek bed.
And after you went, yeah, because we went over the creek, and you said, yeah, go over the creek, and there's a stop sign, and then go left.
Yeah.
And that was where it was. That was, and when you get to the stop sign and you turn left, you can see the old church right up there on the right. And what's cool about this church is that it's one of the oldest churches in Middle Tennessee. It was established in the early 1800s. And then the original building was built in 1835. And then it was rebuilt after the Civil War. So the building that's standing there was built in the 1880s. And it's called Beth Brayer Chapel. And I think I have a picture of it, actually.
Yeah. And it's what draws you. We parked right in front of the chapel, and there's a wrought iron fence, as she said, all around it. And it's completely surrounded by this graveyard. And I love graveyards, and I was going to go in to there, but all of a sudden my attention is drawn behind me on the other side of the car, on the other side of the road. And I look and I said, I'm going to go over there first. And
Here's Beth Brayer Chapel.
Yeah, you couldn't
Built
really tell.
Established in 1810.
Yeah. You couldn't really tell what was on the other side. It looked like there might be gravestones over there, but it was really...
It was like cedar shade.
Yeah.
It was like little pine shady.
And walking over there was this ancient pioneer cemetery. I mean, from the 1700s. And at that time, Tennessee was the wilderness. You know, that was way out west.
The vast wilderness on the other side of the mountains.
Yes. So the people that lived there were pioneers, and the graves had slabs of limestone over the top of them,
and then piles of jagged rocks that were stacked in like these long, like triangular shapes, like they were like long.
It was very odd.
And then it was really weird.
And then when we went across the street to the other cemetery, because I'll shorten this a little bit.
But before that, though, when we were in the old cemetery, I again felt this pull over to the side of the older cemetery, and I went back into the woods, and it was the same exposed limestone rocks in the same kind of formation. It was obviously part of the same old creek bed, but it was exactly the same exposed limestone rocks.
So these two cemeteries were connected somehow. Maybe they're along the same river, along the same stream, or the rocks connected them. And limestone is very energetic anyway. You know, it's full
like
of
crystals.
Yeah, full of quartz. So in the other cemetery, you know, that we were looking up and learning about the folks there, it was kind of odd, but lots of mysteries there. And there was one grave. Remember that one grave?
Yeah.
That had
it was the grave of the oldest person. So that grave, it was the oldest grave in the cemetery, and it had the weird pile of rocks on top of it, and it was inside a little fenced-in area under a big tree. But the groundskeeper had piled all of this brush on top of it, branches, brush, piled tons of stuff on top of it.
Like yard debris,
yeah,
everything on top of the
grave. Of a grave. And it was the oldest one in the cemetery. And if you're
inside this little enclosure, it's like everything else is manicured and taken care of and clean. And this, it's like just throw it all on top. That was
weird, because if you're taking care of a cemetery, you know to treat each grave site with respect, you know. And it was just so weird, and it was the grave of the oldest person too. It was the oldest grave,
and it was a woman,
and it was an old ass lady.
Yeah,
who's probably born in overseas or something.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But it was.
There were some mysteries in there. We took some pictures of some graves because the man that founded the church, he's buried back there, and there were a bunch of graves around him of women who said they were. It said
It's
they
consorts.
were consort of
the pastor.
of the minister, yeah, and
dying very young.
dying really young, and
dead babies
and children dead. But this was like in the early
1800s,
1850s. Yeah, 1850s. But we took some pictures of some of the graves because we know there's a story there, and so there's more stories that need to be visited back there. They need to be visited.
But then after that, when we left there, we stayed there for quite a while, and then we were going to head down and drive past the house that Rachel looked at. And as we were coming up to it, I was like, oh no, I don't want to stop there. I just don't want to. Fortunately, there were several cars in the driveway, and so we couldn't
stop
just
there. And Virgil had just called us minutes earlier and said he threw up at school, so we had to go
leave.
back.
And I was so relieved because I felt like, oh, I did not want to be there.
Like you said you couldn't get any impression from the house because we were rolling by it, but could it have been because you just needed to put up a wall?
Oh, I put up a MFR wall. I put up a big wall because I could sense it coming. And I
was still like, and I was a little bit shut off to it too, and it might have been because you were there. But, because, like, was able to drive by it, and also maybe because I was worried about Virgil, but, like, I didn't feel that sucking in energy. But I really wanted to be able to show you the stairway into the hell.
Well, we'll have to do that another time. We'll go back another time. But anyway, so that was a pretty wild place.
And so there's more to there will be more parts to this story.
Yes. So if you ever go places, I know it seems creepy or odd or whatever to go to cemeteries, but you could learn so much about the history of a place at cemeteries, and there, if you go there respectfully, you're fine. The grief eaters that are there are not going to give you any trouble at all.
That really old cemetery was a really cool spot.
Oh my gosh, I got to tell you.
I would go back there.
I have a connection to grief eaters that dwell in cemeteries. I've experienced them many times, very up close and personal. And so I think somehow I'm recognized when I go there. And the one that was there, I said, this is not just a pioneer grave site, but I could see 10,000 years ago this being a burial ground of some kind. Because whatever was there in the earth, that grief eater that was there, it was no longer needing to feed on fresh new grief. It was just existing in this place, fully fed, fully formed, ancient elemental in that earth among those rocks. And I think it's as big, when you think of the connection between, with the creek bed between the two cemeteries we saw.
And the rocks.
I think this elemental, this grief eater elemental is under all of it. And probably that whole area. And I have a really strong feeling that it is also within that cave.
Yeah.
And that there is something ancient that dwells in that cave, and that is not meant for us.
To be disturbed.
It's not meant for us.
Take those stairs out.
Yeah.
You do not need them anymore.
Yeah. So. Well, happy Samhain, and celebrate any way you choose. Do spooky things. Did you want to tell something quick, Loudon? So
just say hi.
Loudon wants to just come and say hi.
Hi, Loudon.
Hi, Loudon. I'll do a special ghost stories with Spooky Ms. T.I. and Loudon Maggie.
Denise just said that we should take Jerrilyn to that spot, and we were just talking about
Absolutely.
it. I said next time she comes to visit, we're going to go check that place out.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
We already got the booking.
All right, people. Stay well, be kind to each other, and pay attention. Pay attention to what's around you. So many wonders are around us all the time.
Mm-hmm. The veil is thin right now.
Oh, buddy. Yeah, it is.
Hi, Pete.
All right. Good night, everybody. Can you reach that?
Mm-hmm.
Bye.